Good evening, everyone. Let's go live for the Sunday Night Potluck. This is just sort of a chill stream that I've been doing on Sunday nights with no script, no plan. Just a few links, and as my mother would say, a lot of opinions. We're going to be talking about church conflict. Something I get a fair amount of questions about, direct messages, emails, people in person wanting to know some opinions about how to handle church conflict. What do you do when something comes up? So I thought maybe we would talk about that. It was a great post I saw on X. I also want to talk about kind of some thoughts and opinions related to changes in the world of apologetics that I've seen over the last few years and some shifts. I made a post about it yesterday on Facebook, got a lot of engagement. And even Mike Winger came on in 15 years of running my page. Probably the most high profile, biggest following type of person that's ever come on my page and made a comment about the topic. So we're going to talk about that and some of my thoughts. And I thought maybe we would play a clip of President Trump reading the Bible with some thoughts that I have about Christian privilege. Very interesting topic. Okay, let's start with an X post that I saw a while back by Pastor Michael Foster. Michael Foster is, I believe he's an independent Presbyterian pastor in Ohio, and he's done some writing. He has a medium, I would say characterized like a medium-ish following on X. But he had a post recently that I thought was very interesting. This is a post dated, I think it was in April. We'll call this April. I don't see the date right at the top, but it's called Unpopular Church Conflict Advice. And when I read through this a few weeks ago, I thought, I would kind of like to comment on this. Very interesting post. And I've had a fair amount of conflict in my life at churches, not because I went looking for it, but sometimes conflict happens, and you find yourself all of a sudden in the middle of a situation, and you're like, how did we get here? I don't know how this even happened. And you have a couple of awkward conversations with someone in leadership, and all of a sudden, I'm in a church conflict. So, and they could be fairly painful at times. Sometimes conflict becomes so intense that you feel like you have to leave the church. Pastors have their fair share of conflict that they have to go through. Sometimes they have to leave their church. Church conflict is a very difficult issue, and this is not going to be an exhaustively complete discussion of the matter, but just a thought I would read through Pastor Foster's post and then just comment with some thoughts along the way. So he says this: I've had a lot of people reach out to me over the years about serious church conflicts, disputes, and discipline. Usually they're reaching out when things have not gone well, at least from their perspective. Yeah, usually there's a story. And I've had fair number of people tell me their stories over the years, and I have my own stories of church hurt. Most of the time, the situation looks like this. A church member has left. Either a church member has left, but continues to make accusations and influence people from a distance. In other words, a hurt happened. Maybe the person left, the hurt person left, but they're still talking about it with former people in their former small group, or people that they used to go to church with, and they call them up or go out to coffee with them or message them on social media and that kind of a thing. Or the leadership has rendered a final judgment that pushes a member or members to the fringe or out of the church. That's when I get the email or the phone call. Then whichever side walks me through their mountains of evidence, long emails, long texts, and it eventually starts to feel like that scene in A Beautiful Mind where everything is connected with yards and tacks. I've been there, I get it. And hopefully you've seen the meme of the guy who's like kind of trying to explain the conspiracy theory, and there's all of these connections and the tax on the board and all of that. That's what Pastor Foster is referring to. So here's my very unpopular advice. And honestly, I don't care what your ecclesiology is. And ecclesiology is just a technical term for your form of church governing. Okay. Baptist, Anglican, Presbyterian, you will find yourself in situations like this. Yes, being in leadership means you are dealing with people, and people are messy. And sometimes messy things happen. First, if you cannot summarize your case in a single compelling paragraph, the odds of reaching a meaningful resolution are extremely low. That doesn't mean you don't have a case, it means you don't have one that people can actually grasp. This, I think, is such an insightful comment because I've been in a situation where someone asks me about a conflict that I'm in with someone else. And then I want to tell them like this long story about what happened and all of the details. And I've had people try to nicely say to me, like, well, can you just kind of boil it down for me? Like, people don't want to enter into the conflict just as they're trying to care about you or they're trying to understand what happened. I think that the if this is just such an important mental discipline. And when someone wants to tell me about a conflict, this is usually the question that I ask them. And sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. But this might be a helpful clarifying question for you in a conversation if someone's wanting to share about a conflict in their life is like, can you summarize it in a sentence or two, like, or maybe a small paragraph? Like, have clarity. If your emotions are still so messy and on the surface and so easily triggered, and you can't kind of summarize it in a sentence or two or three, maybe you're not really ready to talk about it yet with other people. Maybe you're still in the phase of like, hey, I got to get some counseling. I need some help kind of organizing my thoughts and emotions. I need help processing what exactly happened. But I think this is such good advice. Like, if you are going to have a conversation with people about a church conflict, try to be able to do it in some kind of reasonable, concise, neutral way and make the wording as fair as you can make it. Because really, if it's meandering all over the place and it's a lot of emotional language, then it's really hard to tell as an outsider, like, what's the truth? What's really happening here? And I, as a Christian, have an obligation to not just automatically pick sides. Like, this person's inviting me on some level into the conflict, and I need to kind of try to stay unbiased because I don't have all the information. I don't have the other side of the accounts. I don't necessarily have all the evidence. Now, I'm willing to be a friend and kind of listen to the best of my ability, but I also am cognizant, like, there's likely another side of the story here that I might not have. And this is what makes church conflict so tricky. So, anyways, let's continue with Pastor Foster's article. Once you start rolling out long briefs, people's eyes glaze over. And again, I think his point is a good one. It doesn't mean you don't have a case. You might be totally right with your grievance, but if people can't understand it because it's so complicated and emotional, that's also a hindrance to maybe getting the kind of support that you are actually going to need. First, let's see, once you start rolling out long briefs, people's eyes glaze over. The only ones who stay engaged are those who already have a grievance. and see your situation as a way to advance it. So now we're kind of collaborating in our grievances with other people, and bringing those people in will almost always make things worse. If you've exhausted the normal constitutional means of addressing the issue, which is different whether you're a Presbyterian or Anglican or a Baptist, sometimes it's really hard if you're an independent, non-denominational situation, because there might not be much oversight. There might not be much of a way of kind of working your way up to the leadership and having impartial judgment. Okay, continuing. And you still haven't reached the resolution you want, you probably need to move on. If your leadership and a member has left, you may wish you could bring them back to deal with the issue, but chasing them down will make you look unstable and distract you from the people who are still under your care. Now, this is a very controversial position, I think, for Pastor Foster to put forward, because he's basically saying, if you can't get to a point where you're helping people work out their issues and their conflicts with each other, you might just have to move on. Even if that person has left the church, it might not be wise to chase them down. And I think there's a lot of variables here. There's a lot of things that he's just speaking kind of in broad terms of his own experience as a pastor. So I'd be curious as to what your thoughts are. You can weigh in on that in the comments if you want. If you're a member who believes you were wrongly disciplined, you may be tempted to go public. Social media, emails, side conversations, but that almost always makes you look vindictive. There's a strange dynamic where the more you defend yourself, the more people assume you're guilty. I hate that, but it's real. You also risk embittering yourself and your family against all church leadership. In both cases, it's usually best to move on. Not ideal, but best. Oh, this is such hard advice, because I think there's something in us that we want people to know in a conflict like this. I'm right and the other person is wrong. And we want to kind of invite people into that dynamic of gathering the evidence and sending emails and having side conversations or making posts on YouTube about it, doing exposure videos. I'm so concerned about some of this, the rise of exposure culture. And I know that some people are thinking, they're really trying to do the right thing and they don't know what else to do. And they feel like making videos and having public content is the only thing they can do. And I get that. And I'm sympathetic to that. But I also have very deep concerns about like some of the dark sides of that. So it's something I feel very conflicted about. But I think that Pastor Foster's right, is that it almost always makes you look vindictive. And there is a look that the more you try to defend yourself and the more defensive you look, it just makes you look defensive and kind of bitter and difficult. And it's really hard. And so it, again, not maybe not ideal to move on, but possibly for the best, so that you can try to find a way to turn the page on the conflict. And even if it didn't have the resolution that you were hoping for. If you're a church leader, that means living with people in your community, saying you're abusive, authoritarian, jealous, or whatever the accusation of the day is. If you're a church member, it may mean losing friendships. It may mean finding a new church. It may mean carrying real pain from a situation that went sideways. And again, I think this is such an important point, because there is this kind of rising practice of calling people out in public as abusive or authoritarian, and then making videos about them and trying to shame them in public. And, maybe that's necessary to warn other people, but I think that I feel conflicted about it because what is missing, I think, in a lot of those conversations is the question of what was my participation in this breakdown? Like, very few situations in my experience where conflict is happening have I been 100% the victim. Like, there's almost always some level of participation that we have in difficult situations, even when maybe leaders didn't make the best decisions. And I've been in those situations. Sadly, I worked in ministry a long time. I've um, gone to a few churches in my adult life, and it's hard. But sometimes conflict happens. Sometimes it gets resolved, but sometimes it doesn't. And the question is what do you do with all of those hurt feelings that you have? But there might even be feelings of hurt that are on both sides of the discussion. The pastor may be being perceived as being the problem and authoritarian because he's trying to implement some type of spiritual discipline that might even be appropriate, but he is characterized as the bad guy, and he's the one who's abusing his power and all of this. And it's pastors are human. There's a lot of good pastors out there who do hard things, and people get mad at them, and they don't want to cooperate with the church discipline. They don't want to cooperate with under the leadership of their elders. They don't want to repent of their sins. They leave the church and then they gossip about the pastor. That's not easy either. And so when there is a break in Christian fellowship or any kind of fellowship between humans, I think that a really important question to ask is if somebody comes to me with a conversation about a conflict and they are only talking about the other person involved, everything, they want to give me all the details and all the emails and all the receipts of what the other person did. And then I ask them a question, well, what was your participation in this situation? And they don't have an answer to that. My thought is always maybe it would be good to take some time to think about that. Maybe it would take some time because it just seems like there's been a lot of energy that's gone into dissecting on the microscopic level of what you think the problem is. But very seldom, at least in my experience, maybe I'm just weird, but in very seldom is only one party to blame. There is participation that we make. Like, I was talking to somebody this week where I asked this question, and this person was telling me about a conflict that she went through at a local church. And I asked her, like, okay, well, what was the nature of the conflict? She had a very succinct answer. She knew exactly what it was about. And then I said, okay, well, what was your participation in making this conflict more difficult? And she had reflected on it and she knew exactly how she had contributed to the situation. And then she shared with me how she had actually made amends and tried to reconcile with that person. And so ultimately, even though the conflict was between her and someone in leadership, and then they got the elders involved, um, and that situation had a good outcome because this gal that I was talking to initiated, like, hey, I can see how I made a difficult situation even worse by my conduct and how I tried to handle the conflict. I think that shows a lot of spiritual maturity, but it is very important to take time to do an inventory of our own hearts when we're stuck in a conflict of like, what is my participation in this? And yes, abuse happens, and I'm not denying abuse, but I think that we get so hung up that like every hurt feeling is abuse or every difficult emotion is toxic. Like, no, the normal people make mistakes, normal people have conflict, normal people can escalate conflict or not show up for it very well, and how do we deal with it as Christians? Okay. Some people will say, well, it shouldn't be this way. Of course it shouldn't. But the world isn't as it should be. This place is fallen. We are waiting for full redemption. The kingdom has come, but not in fullness. Some things will not be resolved this side of judgment. You have to learn to live with that. Oh, this is so true. This is so true. Like, when people have allowed a conflict to really take hold of their soul, it's like they will not be satisfied until there is what they see as justice on this side of death. Like, they want justice. They want the person who wronged them to be outed in public and to have the public conversation and all of this. Oh, this is not a good strategy a lot of the time. Like, yes, are there exceptions where people have to be protected from truly abusive behavior? Yes, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about normal things where people make mistakes and they grow from them, or people make mistakes and then you walk a road with them as they are learning. Like, not every hurt feeling is abuse. And even not even every pattern of behavior is abuse. Sometimes all of us, in fact, have things that we struggle with. But when we are so hyper fixated on what the other person did wrong, and we haven't stopped to reflect, well, what was my participation in this? How did I make the situation worse? And we don't really know how to think about that. Maybe we can ask a friend, we can ask our spouse, we can ask somebody to give us feedback, a counselor. What did I do? But we might not get to resolution. That might not happen. But what we cannot do is then engage in our own vengeance campaign against this person and engage in holding on to bitterness. Instead, we've got to figure out, like, how do I move forward without just contacting all my old friends and inviting them into this conflict by constantly retelling the story and retelling the story over and over and over again. And that is a great temptation. It is a great temptation to invite others into the conflict and to justify yourself and to tell it over and over again. And I think that that is a form of gossip. It is a form of vengeance. It is a form of taking things into your own hands. But when you really trust the Lord and you know, like, hey, this isn't going to be worked out, there are public people that I feel like wronged me. I could make exposure videos about people that I have been in ministry with or been in church life with who wronged me, that I believe wronged me. They wronged me significantly. They hindered my career. They hindered my spiritual life. Like, I could make those exposure videos, but I don't, because I'm trusting that God has them in a process. We tried to work it out. It didn't work out. And there's something to be said about trusting the Lord to be in a process with that person. And I can still move forward, even in kind of a relationship with them, in a friendship with them. And then it's gratifying to see them grow. It's gratifying to see them change. But we have to be strong enough inside of ourselves to know that even though this conflict was never fully resolved to my satisfaction, I can't make my satisfaction the standard by which things must be resolved. One last note: time does not heal all wounds. It can just as easily let them fester. But what time often does do is allow emotions to settle. This is very good wisdom. If you can't get past your emotions and you're just constantly retelling it and popping off with the emotions, it's probably best to just find a counselor to talk to about it, even if it takes you a couple years, and let your emotions calm down before you keep repeating the story. Years ago, I had a serious conflict with a pastor I worked with. It was rough. We were at odds, but over time, we rebuilt a relationship. It's growing again, and I'm thankful for that. He's a good man. I love this story because sometimes good people make mistakes. There are some people that I have done things too that have hurt them, and I learned and I grew from them. And, here I am 10 years later, and I'm like, hey, I just want you to know, like, I've grown in this area, and I want them to believe that I'm a good woman. Just as he's saying, he's a good man. We had a conflict. There were mistakes were made. Words were said. We parted ways for a while. We've come back together. We're trying to rebuild things, and I can see the bigger picture now. Hey, he's a good man. She's a good woman. Um, and that can genuinely happen. I wronged somebody a very long time ago as a young person, and it has been a long road back in relationship with that person. But a person's been very gracious to me, and our relationship is on good terms, and we see each other, once a year when I'm in town, and things are okay between us. And we see each other as genuine friends, and we have that history, and we have those painful memories of things that I did that were very difficult for that person. But um this person's been gracious enough to me to let us rebuild the relationship, and to not stay stuck in their thinking about me as I was when I was 27 years old. All right, here's the rest of the article. Did we resolve the issue that divided us? Not really. I think we will still see it differently, but we both chose to let it go. That's also some very good wisdom. Some people will say that's not good enough, maybe, but sometimes this side of heaven, it's the best you can do. And as I said, this is unpopular advice, but sometimes you just have to walk away. A lot of good wisdom there, I think. Okay, now let me scroll back and look at some of the comments here. Future says, yes, if you can boil it down, it could show that you might not be able to be if you can't boil it down, it could show that you might not be able to be objective and reasonable. And that is so hard. Like when our emotions have been wounded, we want to retell the story in a way that favors us. We want to retell the story in a way that makes us look like the good guy, the hero, the injured party, the victim, the oppressed. But I have found over the years, like, it's just so important to try to retell the story of, like, hey, if the other party was here in the room, what would be their side of it? How could I retell it in a way that they would agree with? And that's really hard, but it's a signal to me that my emotions are still too disordered when I can't do that. And maybe I shouldn't be talking to other people about it yet and enrolling them in the conflict. Maybe I need to, talk to my pastor or get some counseling or something like that. Um, and yes, I'd agree with you, Jane. There are other factors that make it difficult to boil things down. I agree. It's hard work sometimes. Those emotions can be very unruly, but it absolutely makes you look unstable, even if you're just trying not to be too harsh or accusatory. Um, Great question here from Jane. We have to ask the Lord to search our hearts and ask ourselves, is it my goal to honor the Lord or protect my reputation? Yeah, the going toward the protecting of our reputation, that can be just such a issue of pride. I know that is for me, and I've had to learn over the years. Like, there was one time in my life when I was about 35 where my reputation was completely destroyed to my peers. It was absolutely destroyed. And it took me about 2 years to sort of get back on my feet. And it was really hard, and I needed a lot of counseling, and it was very devastating and painful to me. And when people would ask me what happened, I had this very long, complicated story that I want to enroll them in, and get them to think badly about the other parties involved. And it took me several years to stop doing that. And I look back on that now and think, ugh, that was probably sinful. That was probably not the best idea. Future says the church is made up of humans, flawed people who sin. We should do better than the world, but we are by no means perfect. Yeah, I agree. And now the Bible, I think, does have some wisdom to help us navigate that, but a lot of time we don't look at that wisdom. We don't really apply it. We just let our feelings kind of run amok, and we start gossiping and trying to enroll people to get them to take sides, and it's a mess. Yeah, this is an interesting question. I find that a sign of failing or weak leadership is inconsistent application of scripture and favoritism in the body. I think that I would love to see better investigations when conflict comes up by church leadership and more impartial evidence gathering and evaluation. I look at part of what the elders do is that they're protecting sound doctrine in the church, but they're also trying to preserve unity by helping to mediate conflicts when they come up and determining, like doing fact finding and evidence gathering and really looking at like, okay, what's really happening here and trying to hear out both sides and everything. Abuse cases are tougher to determine. I appreciate what Mike Winger has done in that he went and took some classes on domestic violence as a pastor to be able to detect it better and be able to see it more quickly and know when certain cover stories are being told and all of that. But we have an episode on church abuse coming up soon on all the things where we're tackling that. We've already done one in the past a few years ago with our friend Ariel Bovat about abuse in the church and detecting abuse and what she does in her counseling practice to try to get to the bottom of like when abuse is happening. And abuse is a tough issue for sure. I'm just more talking about just everyday conflict that people want to turn into abuse. Like they want to call it abuse. They want to relabel it as abuse. And I'm like, no, not every hard conversation, not every tough situation, and not even every conversation where there's an authority figure involved or a power structure does that automatically mean there is abuse. Okay, let's talk about the world of apologetics. Apologetics is a weird world. It's its own little subculture. I remember when Monique first started meeting some of my friends in apologetics, and I've worked in the realm of apologetics for almost 30 years now, pretty close to 30 years. I'm a couple years away. It's really hard for me to believe. And so I knew a fair number of people when Monique and I met back in 2017, 2018. I think she came to her first apologetics conference in September of 2018. She'd never heard of, well, I think she had heard of the word apologetics as a student at Biola, but she didn't really completely understand what it was. And she didn't really know like any of the big name people or anything. And so I started introducing her to some of my friends and I told her early on, like the world of apologetics is like a big trailer park. Everybody knows everybody because you share stages with people. Sometimes you're writing endorsements on each other's books. And if you don't know the person in apologetics, you know someone who knows the person. And so you don't want to be talking sideways out of your mouth about other apologists because everybody knows everybody. And you don't know who that person's friendly with. And it can be just very difficult at times about how to handle disagreements and other things like that. And a while back, let's see, what year is this? 2018. This is probably, yeah, right before Monique came, 2 days before Monique came to live with us. That's crazy. Um, I wrote an article and it was published on the Reasons to Believe website um, about the nature of apologetics. And it's called Evaluating Christian Apologists. And I thought I would share a little bit about this that you might find it helpful. And that is that there's actually different kinds of apologists. And apologetics is really just the idea of defending the faith. And there's a lot of different ways of defending the faith. There's different topics. Monique and I specialize in apologetics related to race, ethnicity, and justice, and the critical social theories. So that includes queer theory, fat theory, critical criminology, critical child studies, all of that. And so we're working in a specific area of apologetics. My former employer worked in the realm of science and astronomy, physics, trying to marshal the case against biological evolution. That was their lane of apologetics. And then you have people who are doing more general apologetics or like Clay Jones has really focused on the problem of evil and suffering. And so there's different lanes and different apologists and different people who specialize in different things, and not everybody specializes in the same thing. But what I call um, there's kind of two groups of apologists, and um, there's what I call researchers or educators. This is kind of the first category, and a researcher are those apologists who are constantly looking for ways to respond to emerging or new faith challenges. These are the apologists who are engaged in developing new arguments. Um, they often are working at the highest levels of academia. Some of them you might not even have ever heard of. They don't sometimes speak at the apologetics conferences. They're quietly publishing articles on a particular issue. A great example of this type of person is Scott Smith at Biola. He doesn't do a lot of public speaking, but he just quietly grinds out academic peer-reviewed articles behind the scenes related to um, justice issues. And he's a member of our academic advisory council at Biola. And his research is very important. Even though he's not a big name, he is trying to be on the cutting edge of looking at what's happening in academia and defending the faith in a particular area in that. And we need those people. Not every apologist needs to be on the conference speaking circuit. We need these people. Um, I would say that my old boss, Hugh Ross, is this weird unicorn of an apologist, because he would do the pioneering work and the research that everybody else is borrowing from. But he also did speak at some conferences, particularly when he was younger. He's still speaking, but I don't think he's doing it quite as much as he used to. But these researchers are the ones who are really doing the pioneering work. I see Monique as being kind of more in this category. Even though she doesn't have a PhD, she is researching and really trying to respond to emerging arguments and reading literature that's on the cutting edge. Like, hey, critical criminology is a big problem. It is transforming how we are engaging in sentencing in our justice system. What does the biblical worldview have to say about that? Like, so even though technically she only has a bachelor's degree as a finished degree, I see her as a researcher. I see her in this category. So I'm not um, uh, saying that a researcher is somebody that necessarily has a PhD. They might, and they frequently do, and sometimes that's really, really important in the kind of research that they do. Like someone like Scott Smith, who's writing in peer-reviewed journals, super important that he has the proper academic credentials. But somebody like Monique, who's really just sort of out there as a pioneer in particular arguments, she's doing good work as well, even though she doesn't have a PhD. Okay, so those are researchers. These are the apologists who tend to write resources that are the most appropriate to share, I think, with an unbeliever. Because often unbelievers who are asking these kinds of more academic questions, they want books with footnotes. This was particularly true in science apologetics. They want books with footnotes that they can go look up the research and the data, and they want to know what the real story is. The second group of apologists, besides the educators or the researchers, or I'm sorry, the researchers are the educators. This is the second category. And these are the people in apologetics who take the information from the researchers and then recast it for lay people or students. These are the people that tend to be on the conference tours. They are great communicators. They have podcasts with tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of views and subs, and they are able to take complex ideas and explain them for a more general audience. And so, if I have found over the years, it's really helpful to think about apologetics this way of, okay, what kind of an apologist is this? What is it that they are doing? And then that helps me know who to share the information with. Like, I might not share a Hugh Ross book, which can be more technical, with a 15-year-old, but I might share our friend Jim Wallace's book, which takes a lot of Hugh Ross's books and reframes it for a high school audience. I might give that book to a high schooler. Okay. And so I would say, that somebody like Hugh Ross is a researcher, but other apologists who take his ideas and then distill them down for the masses are the educators. They're the communicators. Um, and so this is just a way that I found over the years to think about, like, who the different apologists are. Now, that brings me to the post that I made yesterday on Facebook that um, got a lot of interest. um, and I said, I've been noticing how YouTube has really changed the apologetics landscape in the last decade. We have shifted away from the era of apologetics conferences to the era of apologetics influencers. In some ways, it's leveled the playing field. You don't really need a formal education anymore in order to call yourself an apologist. And you can get a big platform. Like, very few conferences are going to have 10,000 people at them for an apologetics conference. And yet you have somebody like Mike Winger that has, hundreds of thousands of subs. Many of his videos have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of views. So you can cast your net much wider on YouTube than you ever could at an apologetics conference. You don't really need a formal education anymore in order to call yourself an apologist or get a big platform. You just need a mic, good communication skills, and some production sense. And this could be seen as a gain. I do think that YouTube has been a bit of an equalizer. So for somebody like me who, um, you know, like I just wanted to start a channel. I didn't have a lot of opportunity to serve in my local church at that time using my teaching and my education. So my husband encouraged me to start a channel. So I started a channel, and I've been doing that, I don't know, about 15 years now. And um, I think that what's interesting to me is that I can have a voice, I can have an influence. And sometimes it's scary to me how much I influence people. I've said before, like, please don't make major life choices based on what I say, like some random woman on a small corner of the internet. Like, if you're going to make a major life choice, talk to your husband, talk to your pastor, get wise counsel. Like, it's really unnerving to me when people come up to me at conferences and say, like, oh, I feel like you're my best friend. And I listen to you every day while I'm out jogging. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe I can be your imaginary friend or your pretend friend. But they're like, oh, I made this major life choice based on something you said. I'm like, please don't do that. Like, I just want to say, like, please do not do that. Talk to people in your real life. Like, do that. Get wise counsel. But what I've seen is that the influence that YouTubers can have is kind of scary to me, because people think that just because somebody has a big following, or they make some good videos or have good production value or a good communicator, like, there's zero vetting that has to go into that. Any Yahoo can set up a YouTube channel and start talking into a microphone. Like, it is not complicated these days to get a good camera and equipment. And if you have just some basic production sense, you can make some decent videos, especially in the age of AI. And I think that what's concerning to me is it's becoming increasingly difficult to know who the good apologists truly are. Because now that we've eliminated whatever vetting system was sort of in place through Christian publishing and building your academic resume and pre-screening through conferences, pretty much all of that has been eliminated. And that can has its pros and cons. There was a lot of comments. Boy, I had no idea I had so many like kind of anti-establishment followers. Like there were a lot of people that were like, who needs a degree? You don't need a degree, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, in a way that's true, but a degree can show you the due diligence of the person, that they've had some peer review, that they've had other people speaking into their lives. And I'm not going to say that yeah, there's a lot of like people that have degrees that I think are just spewing a lot of nonsense. But I don't want to go the other direction and say like a degree is just totally worthless. Like I think we've got to have some balance there. But the apologetics world 20, 30 years ago was the trailer park was much smaller, you know, and there weren't all of these YouTube channels. But now we're in the age of influencers. And there's a lot of people on YouTube who are calling themselves apologists, and I'm thinking, I don't think this person really understands theology. I don't. They may have read some books, or they read a few books on this topic, and now they think they're an apologist. But I can just tell by how they talk that they don't really understand the deeper things of the faith. They don't really understand how theology works. And I've made the case on this channel before that I think theology precedes apologetics. I think apologetics ought to be downstream of your theology, because I can tell. And maybe that's because my background is in theology first, not apologetics first. And I have not been a proponent of an apologetics master's degree. I look at an MA in apologetics, and I think I've said this publicly before, that I look at the MA in apologetics in a lot of schools as being kind of more a generalist degree. It's not a specific degree. And but my degree in theology is just a little bit more narrowly focused. It was a 60 unit degree, not a 40 unit degree. So that there are some differences. And so it's not to like be elitist and say like, oh, I'm better than other people, but I'm not prepared to say like education has no role or that is totally irrelevant. Like I think there's some good things there that can come from an education. Now, there's some bad things too. There are some pitfalls. I've talked about those things as well, but I'm not prepared to like completely pan education all the time. And so, anyways, the age of influencers on YouTube, yeah, the upside is it democratizes things. It's created just more opportunity. It's created a wider window. Like I would have never been called to speak at the elite conferences. I'm still not. I'm kind of a D-list apologist. Okay. Like there's the A-listers and kind of the B tier and the C tier. I'm sort of at the D tier. I'm a D-tiered level apologist. Like I have a pretty small platform, comparatively speaking. And I might do a couple of speaking things a year. I've written one book. I have some smaller books that I wrote at my former employer, but I have one like book from a major publisher. Like I'm a D-level apologist, okay? And um, I know a lot of people, but I would never have the opportunity to be on the big stages. Nobody's calling me. I'm in my mid 50s, and there's a certain type of what they're looking for as an apologist to be in public and speak on stages. And uh, the youth is not in my favor. at this point. But I can still get on YouTube and get a few hundred views and sometimes thousands of views, occasionally tens of thousands of views. That's great. That's more than I would ever get an opportunity to do. So there's a certain upside to YouTube and in the democratization of communication. And I think that can be good. But the dark side of it is that it's making you, the end user, work much, much harder to figure out what kind of content am I consuming? Is this person reliable? Can I really trust them? And if you're just a regular person, you might not even know how to discern whether or not the person is giving reliable information. It's really tricky. And I see it from my standpoint. I know who the good people with quality content are. But like I said at the beginning, apologetics is a really big trailer park. And I can't be jumping on it's just not my style to like be doing call out videos of like, hey, avoid this person, or this person really doesn't know what they're talking about. This person really doesn't know, um, you know, uh, what to, they just, they say some stuff that's like marginally true or a little bit overreactionary, and they don't have good theology. And it's awkward for me. Like, I don't want to uh be that person. So, anyways, well, it's very nice of you, Amy, that I'm higher than a D-list apologist, but I assure you, I am a D-list apologist. There are a lot of people who are higher than me, but I'm okay with that. I have learned to trust the Lord in all things, and nobody's calling me to do stuff, but that's okay. The Lord has brought me so far, and I have had a much more successful um, life and career than I probably deserve, and farther than my education. My education took me much farther than I ever thought it would. And I have had a very nice life, and I am very grateful for what I've learned and the journey along the way. Um, so let's see here. Apologetics is still not common knowledge, and I can see the slippery slope of people quickly trusting someone, and then when they share apologetics, but they don't have good theology or sound doctrine. Yeah, I mean, I think the old system, like let's take my friend Greg Kokel for instance. Greg is the co-founder of Stand to Reason, and Greg and I are we were in seminary together. Now he's significantly older than me, but we were in seminary together, and I remember when Greg founded the ministry and just how much he was hustling. He was one of the seminary guys that had a briefcase, like an old fashioned briefcase. And he was always, between classes, probably editing newsletters and getting his hustle on for how they were going to try to build Stand to Reason and all of that. And there was a certain validity, I guess, and building of your hustle. And if you said crazy things, you were not going to get asked to conferences. You were not going to be invited to do book deals. If you said crazy marginal things, there were consequences for that. And like I said, the apologetics world of quote unquote professionals, or whatever you want to call them, there was a certain vetting process in place of like, oh, he has a book deal with Zondervan or with Tyndale or whatever. And this is back in the day of Baker Books, where those publishers were, for the most part, like still very conservative. So if you had a book deal with Baker Books, that was seen as part of your bona fides of like, hey, I am a reliable apologist because this Christian publisher has vetted me and is publishing my books. My old boss was published by Nav Press for many, many years. But that all has kind of gone away. Like the whole system has gone away with YouTube. And it is very difficult in the culture to speak out against some apologists. And I look at what they do and I think, ugh, I really wish they didn't have such a big platform. Like this is not good. But you can't really say anything. And I'm just, at least for me, I'm just not a call out kind of gal. So, but it is a tricky road to walk. And yeah, there's a lot of comments. I'm up to like 103 comments on this. And I do want to mention Jim Wallace's comment. Um, Someone mentioned this famous quote by Jim Wallace. He says, like, what we really need is less professional apologists and a million $1 apologists. And I totally agree with that. I always am about like, hey, I'm just wanting to equip regular people. And if you find my podcast helpful and it's helping to equip you to like share in your homeschool co-op or with the women in your women's small group, or maybe it's encouraged you to help start a women's ministry at your church, or maybe it's helped you um, start discipling with other families in your area. That's awesome. That's what I'm about. I just look at like every one of my followers. Maybe they're sharing the content with 3 other people. So my channel that has like 12,000 subs on it, maybe I'm really reaching 36,000 people. And that's kind of how I see it, is I want to equip people to share the content with the people in real life that are in their spheres. And that's kind of how I see where God has supernaturally and strategically placed me. I'm not out here just trying to get, like, there's some videos I know I could do certain videos. I know what the topics are to get more clicks and build my channel, but I don't do them. I'm focused on discipleship. I am focused on what topics do I need to talk about to help equip regular people to disciple the people in their lives. And that's really what I am about. So my channel will always be small because I am trying to equip the $1 apologists. I'm trying to equip moms and dads and regular people to share the information with other regular people in their lives. And that's it's kind of where I'm at. All right, I've been yammering on for quite a bit here, but today is the day that I guess there was some big worship service in Washington, D.C. Let me know in your comments if you watched any of that. Here is some kind of service to quote unquote rededicate the country to God on the anniversary of 250 years. I don't know what to think about this. It just is like there's part of me that thinks, oh, I don't like this. It makes me feel cringy. I feel very uncomfortable with all the mixture of church and state. I haven't watched a lot of the streams yet. When I was looking at them this morning, it was just the worship time, so I haven't seen any of the speakers. But here, I don't know how I feel about this. Here's Trump reading the Bible. What do we think about this? I don't know. I really just, I don't know what to think about this.
He prosperously affected. And the Lord appeared to Solomon by night and said to him, I have heard your prayer and have chosen this place for myself for a house of sacrifice. If I shut up heaven, that there be no rain, or if I command the locusts to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Now my eyes shall be open and my ears attent to the prayer that is made in this place. For now I have chosen and sanctified this house, that my name may be there forever, and my eyes and my heart shall be there perpetually. And as for you, if you will walk before me, as David your father walked, and do according to all that I have commanded you, and shall observe my statutes and my judgments, then will I establish the throne of my kingdom according to as I have covenanted with David your father, saying, there shall not fail you as a man to be ruler in Israel. But if you turn away and forsake my statutes and my commandments, which I have set before you, and shall go and serve other gods and worship them, then will I pluck them up from the roots out of my land which I have given them, and this house which I have sanctified for my name will I cast out of my sight, and will make it to be a proverb and a byword among nations. And this house which is high shall be an astonishment to every one that passes by it, so that he shall say, why has the Lord done thus to this land and to this house? And it shall be answered, because they forsook the Lord God of their fathers, which brought them forth out of the land of Egypt, and laid hold on other gods, and worshiped them and served them. Therefore has he brought all this evil upon them.
Okay. I have some thoughts. Trump's scripture reading is cringe. I agree. It's a little cringy. So I have so many conflicting thoughts about this. Brittany says, I don't think he has any idea what he's reading. It's very possible. I, oh my gosh, I've said this before and people always get mad at me and then other people agree with me. So I never know. But I'm not sure that Trump is a Christian. I kind of don't think he is. I think he has a lot of adjacency to Christians. I think he's more of a cultural Christian. Um, he is just somebody that like I have so many complicated thoughts about Trump, and people assume that you know that I'm a big Trump person, and I'm really not. I feel very mixed about him. But in the end, it came down to for me, like I voted for protection of children from genital mutilation over um, genital mutilation. Like that to me was the killing children versus not killing children. Like this is how I think about it. But I don't like Trump's policies about IVF and surrogacy. So it's very mixed for me. Like I don't have like clear feelings about it, but and I also struggle with the whole like mixing of church and state, which might surprise people given how much content I do about like the biblical values and founding of our country. But I'm still very conflicted personally about um just thinking about how much of that to put out in the public square and what happens when you have people that may or may not be real Christians participating. It's all confusing to me. I did appreciate though that in the Bible reading that he didn't just read the one verse about healing our nation and healing our land. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray, I will heal their nation. Like he read the judgment parts too. I appreciated that. I appreciated that he read, if you turn away from me and if you disobey my commands, I will bring judgment against the land. But it's always, it's a complicated situation hermeneutically from a biblical interpretation standpoint of like, why are we reading Second Chronicles 7? The context of it is the dedication, Solomon's dedication of the temple. What does that have to do with us as Americans? We are not in a covenant relationship with God. How do we think about these things? It's confusing, and we would be here all night with me parsing all that out. But I appreciate it that they're not rededicating our country to Satan. Like, okay, it could be worse. We don't have these same types of dedication services to using Islam as the framework. Okay, I can be grateful for that. And someone says on here, Trump makes her tired. I agree. He makes me a little tired too. Like there's some things that he's done that I can appreciate. I appreciate this policy, but then his style of communication does make me tired. And it's just some days I wake up and it's kind of silly. Like, why is he doing this? Why is he saying this? Like he could, I think, garner more support if he didn't make so many extreme statements. Yeah. It's difficult. It could be worse. It could be worse. Monique always talks about Haiti, her father is Haitian and how Haiti dedicated the country to Lucifer or to Satan. It's like, okay, at least we're not doing that. Like, all right, we don't have witches up there. Like, it could be worse. I don't know. And yeah, I don't know. I thought that too, Amy. If that was the section I just played was from the Bible reading from a few days ago, but they reposted it today on Fox News as part of the rededication. So I don't know if they replayed it. I wasn't really sure. But anyways, when I saw this post on X, this is how it ties in. That there is a concept in academia of Christian privilege. And Dr. Owen Anderson, who's somebody that we're hoping to get on all the things possibly soon, who's a professor at Arizona State University. He's a conservative. But this is from the ASU Humanities, Project Humanities. And this is the Christian privilege checklist. And I thought this is so interesting because many people would see the rededication ceremony today as like the quintessential example of Christian privilege. You know, we don't do this kind of thing for other religions. We're not dedicating the country to Shiva or some Hindu demonic god. Like we generally just limit it to Christian things where we're doing stuff like this. Every once in a while we'll throw in a Jewish person. But I think that I have no idea what this comment is. So if you want to, MAGA is the highest ranking official in the Church of Satan. I don't know what that means. And I don't recognize you as a regular commenter. So you might get blocked if you get crazy. Okay. So the Christian privilege thing, though, this concept is out there in academia. That, you know, we get holidays off. We get Christian holidays off. Now, I guess that would be Christmas and Thanksgiving. Does that count as a Christian holiday? To me, that's more of an American holiday. Not every place gives you Good Friday off anymore. Let's see. What was Owen was saying? Number 14. It's easy for you to find your faith accurately depicted in television, movies, books, and other media. That's just laughable. That's just silly. Like, there's so few examples of us seeing healthy Christians, Bible believing Christians in public on media or television. Like, put some in the chat. Like, tell me who they are. Like, what are those examples? Like, that's not a position of privilege. That's a rarity. I think that you can go into any career you want without it being associated with or explained by your faith. I remember I had one job on the very first day. They found out I was a Christian, and that became a point of mocking for my coworkers of like, "Oh, you're one of those people." Like, I don't necessarily think that's a privilege. Like, there's a lot of Christians who have to sue in order to hang up religious messages in their cubicle, like were not used pronouns. Like, there's a never-ending stream of lawsuits. It seems like I don't know where this idea of Christian privilege is. Like, maybe that was true 50 years ago when I was growing up, but I'm not persuaded that that's as much of a thing as they think. So, but in the sense of today being a day of rededication, okay, I could kind of see the Christian privilege in that. And do think that, you know, more public conversation about the Christian worldview as being the operational worldview behind the scenes of our country in the past and our founding documents is interesting and important. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. I just don't know what to think about the rededication thing. It just seems like a lot of I don't know, maybe some good intentions mixed with LARPing. I don't know. Oh, my Bob's just now he told me an hour ago my image was backwards. Sorry, guys. I didn't see the text. There we go. Now it's correct. Oh boy. This is one of the more inane lists of privilege I've ever seen. But you have to understand, like, Christian privilege is a thing in academic mindsets. Like they really think that everything in the public square is ordered around Christian privilege, and so that's why it needs to be deconstructed, dismantled. That's why we need all of these other kind of corrections. Is they are trying to get rid of the Christian privilege. So there was a comment where somebody was a little frustrated with me earlier. So let's address that. I'll give it some airtime. Oh, not this one, but we'll put this one up. Trump has made comments many times that he doesn't understand the gospel and is not saved. He's never repented. Doesn't think he should. Yeah, I think he's very confused, but he does have some people in his circle that I think are legitimate Christians, and so hopefully they're sharing the gospel with him, and hopefully the Lord will do something there for him. And that's a way to pray for him. But it's a tough issue. Someone says, I worry that they will bring reproach or undermine the credibility of Christianity by acting silly or saying the wrong things. I think that's part of my concern too. Sometime maybe we'll talk about the backlash that I think is coming after the Trump administration. Okay, here's the question that the person was a little frustrated with me. I just don't think it's kind, edifying, or wise to rank faithful apologists or pastors when there's so many other issues facing the body. It comes across as immature and petty. I'm sorry. I'm just telling you, like, this is what is. Like, there is only a certain elite class of apologists. It's not to put anybody else down. It's just that's how the world works. Like, there are some people who get more book deals than other people, and it's not to say they're not hardworking people, or I think they are. I think by and large, many apologists are very, very hardworking people. But there is a certain class of different classes of apologists. Like, there's only certain apologists. Like, I would never be invited to, like, I'm way too small of a platform, and I haven't put in the work of writing all the books the way that my friends Natasha and Elisa have. They're in a different class than me. Like, that's not being petty. I'm not trying to put anybody down. I'm trying to acknowledge their accomplishments and acknowledge that I am just not in the same group. Like, I've made other life choices. I do other things. There, and the topics that I cover are just not as popular, and I don't like stealing other people's content just because I see a topic. Like, sometimes Allie Beth and I seem to, like, kind of be one step forward or ahead of each other. Like, sometimes I'll come out with something first and then I'll see her come out with it like with a day or two later. And I don't think Allie Beth is following me, but I mean, I think that, like, she's a list apologist. Like, I'm not trying to say anything bad or anti those people. I'm just trying to acknowledge, like, there's just different tiers. Like, I'm not getting calls to speak and share the arrows. Like, I'm not in that league. I'm not in that, like, that's just not happening. I'm It's just different. It's just different for different people. Yeah, and I don't have any bitterness about it at all. Like, when I call myself a D-list apologist, I'm doing it sort of tongue in cheek of, like, this is just my reality of, like, I have 14,000 followers, like, and I've worked hard for that. For 15 years, I've been grinding it out. Like, and I do not do clickbaity videos, and it cracks me up when people come on my stream and, like, this is such a clickbait thumbnail. I'm like, man, you don't even know clickbait. Like, I'm trying to do meaningful, substantive content here. So yeah, please forgive me if it came across sounding petty. That wasn't what I was going for. I was just trying to explain, like, the internal workings of behind the scenes of apologetics culture that I find interesting and humorous, just because I like people watching. So let's see here. Oh, okay, you were reacting to something from Redeemed Zoomer. Okay, that's great. No problem. No problem. Still good to address it. I appreciate you bringing it up. I don't know anything about that context, but Wise Disciple also had a video out this week. Somebody had mentioned it. Who was that? Oh, I think it was my friend Andrew Rodriguez had mentioned that the Wise Disciple channel had also kind of talked about the state of apologetics. So I watched that video this morning. It was interesting. It's kind of different angle, but similar themes of what I'm talking about. And the Wise Disciple channel, I really like that guy. I don't know him. I don't know him from Adam, but Apologetics is a small trailer park. I bet I know somebody who knows the Wise Disciple. He has a pretty good channel. I think he has pretty good content, and I appreciate that. But he talked about, just sort of the rage baiting and how those videos do so well in apologetics of, like going on these online debates and then clipping them, and they'll get tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of views, but it's not necessarily the most educational and edifying thing. It's just more about tribalism and taking sides. And I appreciated his good word on that issue. So he's also kind of looking at some of the dynamics of the YouTube influencer apologetics world. But yeah, I think that it's just what a time to be alive. Like in my world, in my thinking, I just want to bring all technology under the lordship of Christ. That's really like how I think about things. Is I want to bring my usage of all technology under the lordship of Christ. And so that's YouTube. And man, there's so many temptations in YouTube to sin. Like it I would really like to do a show sometime just explaining the dark side of Christian YouTube and how it is a chronic invitation to sin. And I'm not sure that non-YouTubers really know what some of those thoughts are that you have, but even down to like now the usage of AI thumbnails and titling and topics. And you just know as a YouTuber, oh, if I do this topic, it's going to do really, really well. But what the content is that will do really, really well is not necessarily the content that will be the most edifying. If all I did was make call out videos, the videos on my channel that consistently do the best are the ones I do about Biola. But I think I have like 10 videos now about Biola on my channel. I have like over almost 500 videos on my channel. So it's a small fraction of them. But those videos consistently like do better than other videos just because the people crave the gossip and they want to know. Now, when I did a positive video about Biola, positive changes, that didn't do very well at all. That only got a few hundred views. And so that just tells you, it's like there's just this constant pull to do the negative thing, to say the negative things. It's really difficult to be a YouTuber with integrity and to do more sophisticated content. It would be so easy for me to do content that would be more shareable, more clickable, but I wouldn't be discipling people in a substantive way so that they can disciple others. And that's really what I feel like the Lord has called me to. That's how he has strategically and supernaturally placed my life is. And that's why I always tell you at the end of every show, please share this with 3 people. I don't care who those 3 people are. I don't care if that's your teenager and you lock them in your car and you go on a long trip so you can play the podcast and talk about it with them. Or you send it to your pastor, or you send it to your women's director, or you start volunteering to be the women's director, or you start volunteering to do an apologetics club in your church. Like, I want you to use the content. I want it to grow your soul, but more than that, I want you to share it. Even if that's just over coffee with a friend, that maybe some little morsel that you've learned through my content that you can offer better, wise counsel to somebody in distress. And that's why I do this. I have relegated myself. I'm not going to have a best-selling book. When I was in my 30s, I wanted to be on the Women of Faith tour. Like, that's what I thought in my 30s was going to be the epitome of my career as a theologian. Was I was going to be on the Women of Faith tour. So many of those women have deconstructed now. So maybe that was God's blessing to me that didn't work out. But I just I am totally okay. In my 40s, my big thing that was I let go of was, even if I am never known, even if I never write a book, I will be okay. And I am just going to do whatever it is the Lord puts in front of me. And I'm going to be faithful to that. And when I did the Apologetics Club at our church for the high school students, it was like 12 students. It was not a lot of people. Like I was not changing the world there. Okay. But that's where I learned really how to teach, was in that. And so if I bombed, I was only bombing in front of like 8, 15-year-olds, but that's where I really learned how to teach. And I was serving those families. And that's what I had to learn was more important than the views. It was being faithful in the little things. And I want you to be faithful in the little things in your life. And if you can use my content to equip yourself and be faithful to the people in your life, that's what it's all about for me. It's training $1,000,001 apologists, as to use the words of Jim Wallace. So yeah, that's it. Okay. Redeem Zoomer and put out a video ranking apologists and pastors. They put James White as a C tier. Oh, that's sad. No, that's not what I'm doing. That is not. I think James White is, to use the categories I was using earlier, is a researcher. He has pioneered some really great material in very important areas, and he has a long career and an established ministry. And no, that's not what I'm talking about. Yeah. Okay. Boy, I've been talking about it a long time on here. I'm sorry this is so long. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed the Biola update video. Encouraging to see some of the places that they had made some changes. And then we had the very unfortunate video a couple days later of like, still got some problems, but I want to give praise where praise is appropriate. And so anyways, thank you so much. Too many are quick to abandon our institutions rather than fighting for them. Thank you for fighting. Well, I'm trying. I'm trying. Well, at least trying for Biola's sake. And I'm trying to inspire others to fight for other institutions. I can't fight for every institution, but I'm just one person on a small corner of the internet. But I can do what I can for the people in my life. So thank you so much for watching. I know this was terribly long. I'm very sorry. Try not to make them so long. But thanks for hanging out with me for the Sunday night potluck. I'm having a good time doing these kind of disorganized chill streams on Sunday nights. And then my husband, I recruit him into dropping 1 or 2 of them during the week into small clips. So hopefully you can share those out. I did the one last week on the UFOs. I made that one into a clip. So hopefully you enjoyed that. All right, friends, we will see you soon. Tune in tomorrow night for all the things. It is a live stream with Monique, and I will be doing it here in Phoenix, Arizona. We are both together. So I'm looking forward to that. And also tune in for our weekly family meeting, usually on Wednesdays, except when it's on Thursdays because we're tired on Wednesdays. So anyways, take care. Grace and peace.